Hey folks, this is Vince with Dad's Gaming Addiction, and today we're going to quickly check out Ghostbusters the board game. It's for 1 to 4 players for ages 15 and up. Now there's no average play time listed on the box, but in my experience it's about 30 to 60 minutes per scenario. You can play over a campaign, which involves 4 scenarios, or you can just play a one-off mission. You can even create your own if you want to. But this is a cooperative game in which players work together to close these gates and bust some ghosts. So without further ado, let's take a quick look at the components and see how the game is played. Okay, so here's a quick look at all of your components. First, we'll start with, I guess, this little board here. This is sort of like the ghost pool. At the beginning of each scenario, you're going to assign a number of these Class 1, Class 2, and Class 3 ghosts to this spirit realm. And as you are prompted to add ghosts onto the map here. This is a modular board. These are two-sided. I don't have the board set up in any particular way, but if you look at the back of these campaign cards or these scenario cards, it'll tell you how to set everything up, what boards to use. Like it says S2 here. So you're going to find the S2 piece, wherever it happens to be, and then rotate it in the appropriate direction. So, yeah, let's get back to this, the spirit realm. And basically, as you are prompted to add ghosts to the map, you're going to take ghosts from the spirit realm and add them here. And that is done through these gates over here. And there's different symbols on these gates. The reverse side is just the Ghostbuster symbol. That means it's closed. You can still see what symbol it is, because whenever you roll the event die, and I apologize if I'm throwing a lot of concepts at you all at once, but whenever you roll this event die, it'll tell you what gate is activated, and the scenario will tell you what happens when that gate is activated. But anyway, trying to get back to this again, as you are prompted to add stuff, you'll take from here. As you capture ghosts and put them into your Ecto-1 or deposit them into the Ecto-1, into the spirit realm, they come back over here. Now, in most cases, the scenario will fail if you go to take something from here and put it onto the board. If you can't take from here anymore, then you fail. So what you're going to want to do is try and capture ghosts, deposit them into your Ecto-1, and then add them back to the spirit realm. So you're sort of refilling your life, so to speak. So there's that. This is the spirit realm. You've got the Ecto-1 figure and the Ecto-1 tile. The Ecto-1 figure goes on the board itself. This stays off. And because these figurines can't stand on the figure like that, you're just going to, put them on this tile off the board so that you know which pieces or which of the Ghostbusters are in the vehicle and which ones aren't. So that's that. As I was saying, there are different campaigns and scenarios. You've got campaign number 1 that consists of 4 scenarios. And again, the reverse side will list out where you should put everything. This is the map key, how many you should add to the spirit world, and that kind of thing, where the Ecto-1 starts, where the closed gates and the open gates start, things like that. Oh, wow, I think I missed that. Yeah, I played that wrong. Okay, yeah, Vinny and I played a practice game yesterday, and we didn't add these 2 gates to the map. That's my bad. Okay, anyway. It was a practice game anyway. But yeah, keep in the back of your mind that there are different scenarios, and there's Campaign 2, that's 4 scenarios. Campaign 3 is 4 scenarios. And then these yellow ones here are these one-off missions that you can play. And each scenario roughly takes between 30 minutes and a half an hour. You've got these ghost cards here. They tell you how to resolve the various ghosts. There's a Class 1, a Class 2, a Class 3, and the Class 1 is always named the Galloping Ghoul. The Class 2 is always named Gruesome Twosome. Class 3 is always the Bungalow Manifestation. You've got some bosses here, Slimer, Ildunas, I can never pronounce that, and then Stay Puft Marshmallow Man is Class 7. And on the reverse side, it just gives you a brief overview of what they are. But it'll tell you how much you need to roll to hit them, how many streams you need to put on them to trap them, what happens when they're hit, what happens when they're trapped, when you miss them, like when you attack them and you miss. Some of these even have special abilities down here. Like if they occupy the same space, they can combine to form a more powerful ghost of the next class. So if 2 land on top of each other, then they turn into a Gruesome Twosome up here, and so on. So there's different ghost cards, and these ghost cards, again, correspond with these figures here. You've got, like, here's your Class 1 here on the right. In the middle, you've got the Class 3, and then the Gruesome Twosome, the Class 2, is right here. And then you've got some bosses back here. I don't like the fact that the boss is the same. One of the bosses is the same color as the other ghost. It's kind of hard to find when you're looking in the box. But you've got Ildunas, I think is how you pronounce it. Stay Puffed, and this is really heavy, by the way. But as you can see, it's not painted, which kind of sucks. And then you've got Slimer. So these are your bosses. You've got a PKE meter in the upper right here. And whenever a ghost is prompted to move randomly, you're going to roll this 8-sided die, and then whatever number comes up, that's the direction that the ghost moves in. So you're going to use this movement die in conjunction with this PKE meter. These 6-sided dice here are used for combat rolls. This Ghostbusters symbol acts as a 6, so it's just 1 through 6. This is your event die. At the end of every round, you're going to roll this, and then depending on what symbol comes up, that'll activate one of these gates here. If this chaos symbol comes up, that means all of the ghosts move in a particular direction. And again, you're going to use that PKE meter and dice to do that. Let's see, I already explained about the modular board. You've got these character cards, again, the 4 Ghostbusters, Peter, Winston, Egon, and Ray here, and they each have experience points that they can earn, and you'll be tracking it with this XP tracker down here. You'll be moving it from left to right, and they start at level 1 and work their way up, unless you're playing like a one-off scenario, in which case sometimes they'll start at level 3 or level 4 or whatever, but normally they start at level 1 and work their way up, and their experience stays with them from from scenario to scenario. But yeah, it stands here, for example, as they level up, they start at level 1, and they each have different ways of gaining experience. Now, normally you gain experience by putting streams on the ghost, and whenever the ghost is trapped, whoever has a streamer on them gets 1 XP per streamer. So if you have 2 streamers on a ghost, which are these circle things, and these are color-coded to match a particular Ghostbuster. So this is Spangler's streamers here. That way you know who's putting the streamers on what ghost and who gets the XP. But it's 1 XP per streamer that you have on the ghost whenever it's captured. So as you can see, yeah, each Ghostbuster has their own card. And I think that covers everything. I might have missed some things. And they're even color-coded here too. So Egon is orange. I believe Ray was yellow. Yeah. Oh, and whenever you get slimed, you get this on you. This is -1 action. You can never have more than... you can't have a number of slime tokens on you equal to the number of actions you can only take on your turn. At the very beginning, when you're only at like level 1 or 2, you can only have 2 actions. So you can't have more than 1 slime token on you. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to take an action on your turn. That would just be ridiculous. So you can have at most 1 of these slime tokens on you when you're level 1, level 2. At some point, you'll get to level 3 and be able to take an additional action on your turn, in which case you can have 2 slime tokens on you because, again, you can't have a number of slime tokens on you equal to the number of actions you can take on your turn. And again, here's the box. Now, the game came with this. These are like the plastic sheets that hold all of the miniatures, and they each have their own mold. However, whenever you put this into the box, like, it takes up all the room, and then once you punch out the boards and all the other things, you can't fit all of the other stuff in here. So I just did away with this brown box altogether and the plastic sheets, and I just put all the miniatures in here. I don't like doing that, but it's the only way I can get all the pieces to fit. There might be a way to do it, but yeah. Anyway, so I believe I've gone through all of the components. Let's go ahead and take a quick look at how the game is played. Alright, now because game setup will vary depending on what scenario you pick, I'm going to opt to skip that step, but I will say that you want to use all 4 Ghostbusters. In the practice game that Vinny and I played, and I keep referring to this practice game, we published a video to my YouTube channel. We were sort of learning how the game was played, and we missed this part. We controlled 1 Ghostbuster each. The scenarios are balanced for 4, so if you have less than 4 players, then you're going to want to use all 4 Ghostbusters. Like, 1 player will have more than 1, or if you're playing with 2 players, then, you know, each person gets 2, that kind of thing. So each player, let's say we're playing a 2-player game, I would get these 2, and then the other player would get these 2. And, you know, sometimes they'll start off in the Ecto 1, sometimes they may start off, you know, on the field, whatever the case may be. You're going to have to follow the scenario instructions. But each player will get the Ghostbuster minis, and they'll get the appropriate card. And that's basically game setup. And again, this is all random here. I don't have this tailored to any one scenario. This was just for example purposes. So on a Ghostbusters turn, and the way the round works, the Ghostbusters each take a turn, and then once the Ghostbusters are done taking a turn, any end of round effects occur, and then the event die is rolled. Now, as far as a Ghostbuster turn, you get 2 actions and a maneuver, and they can be performed in any order you want. The actions you can take on your turn is to move, and you can move 1 or 2 spaces. So let's say that, let's just say these Ghostbusters were out like this, whatever. And again, this is example purposes. Let's say it was, this is Egon. So he could, if he wanted to move, you can move diagonally, by the way. So he could do like 1, 2. So that would be 1 action he decided to move. Another thing that you can do is drive. Let's say that one Ghostbuster was in the Ecto-1, and the Ecto-1 can move up to 6 spaces. So it's going to be something like 1, 2, 3, 4, and if you move sideways, you can move sideways. You don't have to be facing any particular direction to move it. 6, something like that. So you can move the Ecto-1. You can deposit trapped ghosts. Whenever you capture a ghost in this game, it goes on your character card here, and then and it's important because the first scenario that we played, Vinny and I, there's a particular roll that occurs if you roll a particular event symbol. Like if you roll this and a particular symbol comes up and the gate is closed, then you lose the ghost that's on your character card and it comes out and bad things happen. So depositing ghosts into the Ecto-1 is actually very important. And again, putting ghosts into the Ecto-1, you have to be adjacent to it, will bring it back to the spirit world over here. You don't get any extra XP for doing that, but it replenishes this pool, and again, it'll prevent some nasty things from happening whenever the event die is rolled. Another action you could take on your turn is removing slime from another Ghostbuster, and this is important because you can remove slime from yourself, but you have to make that the very first thing you do on your turn, and then you forfeit the rest of your turn. So it's better to remove slime from somebody else as opposed to letting them do it on their own. So that's another thing that you can do, and again, these -1 actions are put onto Ghostbusters as they get slimed. And of course, you'll take them off whenever you remove slime from them. And then combat. Combat works, basically, there's something in this game called line of sight. There's like orange lines, yellow lines, red lines. These are like different obstructions. Line of sight is 3 spaces when it comes to combat. So, for example, and it's also diagonal. So if, who's the red one? Might be Peter. Yeah, Peter. So this is 1, 2, 3. Now this is 3 spaces. That's line of sight. There's no like particular lines blocking him, and the different lines mean different things. And again, I apologize, I'm sort of jumping all over the place here. But the red lines, and I have to refer to this because there's no reference card, and that's one thing I don't like about this game. Red lines mean that a Ghostbuster may not move or be moved across or trace a line of sight across a red line. So basically, when it comes to red lines, you can't move or do line of sight. So if this ghost were here, and this ghost were here, and Peter wanted to shoot him, here's a red line, it's obstructed, that line of sight is obstructed, so he can't shoot him. So that's what the red lines do. Dashed red lines are on these little gates here. You cannot move onto them, but you have to be adjacent to them in order to fire at them. So you can fire at these gates in order to close them, but you have to be adjacent to them in order to do that. Whenever a gate is closed, it just acts as it's an empty space. There's no line of sight issues there. Orange lines are obstructions. A Ghostbuster may not move or be moved across an orange line, but they do have line of sight. So if Peter were here and this ghost were here, then there's an orange line here, an orange line. He could not move across it. But he has 1, 2, 3. He has line of sight. The orange does allow line of sight. So Peter could shoot through the orange line. He just can't move across it. So that's what the orange line does. The yellow line, again, I have to refer to this. A Ghostbuster may move and be moved across yellow lines. However, a Ghostbuster cannot see or shoot. So line of sight is broken. So let's say the ghost were here. Okay, so Peter's trying to shoot this ghost. There's a little yellow line right here. Peter cannot see through this, but he can move through it. So, yes, different lines mean different things, but assuming there's no lines, it's normally just 3 spaces, 1, 2, 3, that's line of sight. This would be line of sight, this would be line of sight, so on. And whenever you have line of sight, you can initiate your combat action, and basically that means you're going to roll a combat die to see if you actually hit it. And each of these ghosts have different requirements, like to hit this galloping ghoul, you need a 3 or higher to add a stream. So let's say he rolls, does a 4, okay, so that's 3 or higher, to trap 1 stream. So basically, you trap automatically if you get enough streams on him. And because it's red, red would get put under here. Now you wouldn't, oh, wrong one. This one here, okay. Now, normally you wouldn't need to do that with this particular ghost because to stream, or to trap, you only need one stream anyway, so that's kind of worthless. So basically, the Ghostbuster that hits this level 1 or class 1 will automatically be trapped. And whenever you trap a ghost, you're going to take a look at the number of streams underneath the ghost, and whoever has a stream under it gets 1 XP per stream, and then you'll adjust your character card appropriately. There's a little level tracker down here. And again, as you level up, you get new abilities. So, but you will need these streamers, though, on like the Class 2 and the Class 3 because they have more hit points, so to speak. So the Gruesome Twosome, for example, has to trap 2 streams. So he'd need, like, if this were a hit, he'd do that, and then he'd continue as normal. This is just a reminder that Peter hit him once with his streamer, and then if someone else came in and then did that, and let's say Winston came down and hit him, then that would be 2 streams, and then that would be it. Now, whenever you attack via the combat action, you have to pay attention to the different class, or the different class cards here, the different ghost cards, because they have different rules: when hit, when trapped, when missed. When hit moves 1 space toward that Ghostbuster. So when Peter hit him, that ghost would have moved toward him. Let's say that somebody missed against that ghost. Move 1 space toward that Ghostbuster, then moves 1 space in a random direction. Again, random is via that PKE meter and die up there. When trapped, place it on your character card. Some of them, like, blow up, sort of like this Galloping Ghoul. When trapped, each Ghostbuster adjacent to this Galloping Ghoul gets slimed, then place it on your character card. So yeah, different ghosts have different conditions that you'll have to pay attention to. Alright, so that was just a quick summary of the 5 actions. You've got move, drive, deposit, trapped ghosts, remove slime from an adjacent Ghostbuster, or combat. And again, you have 2 action points on your turn. So you can do a combination of those 5 things, but you can only do 2 of them. Whenever you level up to level 3, you'll be able to do 3 of those things. Now, you also get a maneuver on your turn, and the maneuvers are basically sort of like 2 things. Let's see if I can find the rule book. Based on my understanding and my memory here, it's simply being able to enter or exit the Ecto-1, so you can, like, enter or exit the vehicle with, you know, a maneuver. Or instead of you doing that, you can hand off a trapped ghost to somebody else so that they can deposit the ghost on their turn. So that's those are the 2 maneuvers that you can take, but again, you only get 1 maneuver on your turn. So 1 maneuver, 2 actions. If you are level 3, you get 3 actions. If you're slimed, you get less actions. So once all of the Ghostbusters are done taking their turns, you're going to go ahead and check to see if any end-of-round conditions need to be resolved. And then you're going to roll this die. And this die has different symbols, and those symbols match the different gates that are on the table. Like, even when they're closed, there's a little plus sign to tell you that on the reverse side that this is a plus. So you're going to have to refer to your scenario to see what happens when you roll that particular thing. Let's see here. When rolling the event die and that gate is open, a ghost from the spirit world emerges from that gate. When it's closed, each Ghostbuster carrying 1 or more trapped ghosts loses 1 of them, the lowest class. It emerges from that Ghostbuster space. So you're going to roll this die, and different things happen. If you don't roll a gate, instead roll the chaos, then each ghost moves. You're going to roll the die, 2, and then you're going to move all ghosts in that direction, assuming they can. So something like that, okay? Again, this is just for example purposes, not actual gameplay here. And then that basically concludes a round, and then this will continue, you know, over the course of several rounds until one of 2 things happen. If the Ghostbusters are not doing very well, and more ghosts get summoned, and all this, and there's no more ghosts to draw from whenever, and again, it depends on the scenario too, but in most cases, if you go to draw from here and you can't, you fail, and in most cases, your objective is to close all of the gates, and that involves getting your Ghostbusters over to them, and then shooting so many streams at them. For example, release gates. To hit 4 or higher, add a stream. To close 2 streams. So they act like a ghost, but you have to be next to it in order to attack it. When you miss, a ghost from the spirit world emerges from that gate. And again, different scenarios have different rules, so you want to pay attention to that. Scenario results in close each open gate. Is there any ones different? Okay, scenario results in defeat Stay Puffed. Fail, 7 or more class worth of ghosts move off the goal map. So there are some individual goals that you want to pay attention to, but in most cases, it involves closing these gates here and preventing ghosts from just basically swarming you on the board. Okay, so there you have it, a quick and dirty look at the Ghostbusters board game. It's important to stress I did not cover all of the rules found in the manual. This was just to give you a general overview so that you could see how the game was played. As far as what I thought, I'm leaning more toward a positive review as opposed to negative, but there are some things about this game that I don't like. Number one, I think the instructions could be laid out better. I had to reread this thing like 3 times because there are some really key concepts in here that are only explained once, and they're sort of like in paragraph form too, so it's like they're not bullet pointed to me to say, hey, this is important, maybe you should pay attention. Like, I totally missed the part in here when we were playing that scenarios are made for 4 characters. You need all the help you can get. With 4 players, each one takes on the role of 1 or more Ghostbusters. When there are fewer than 4, 1 or more players. I totally missed that when reading this rulebook. So Vinny and I only played with 1 Ghostbuster each, and it made the scenario harder. Luckily, we played with less gates because we forgot to add some others. So we actually sort of balanced the game out that way. But again, it was a practice game. Other things I didn't like, there's no reference cards, like explaining what you can do on your turn. So you have to constantly come back to the manual. A reference card telling you what you can do on your turn and what your maneuvers are, and what the line of sight rules are would be extremely helpful, and unfortunately the game does not include that. Line of sight was probably the hardest thing for me to wrap my head around. Like, what the different lines mean on the board. Like, what do the yellow ones do? Can I move through that? Can I shoot through it? The red lines, can I move through them? Can I shoot through it? Orange, same thing. What happens with the open gates? It's just, I think that the game needs some reference cards so that you're not constantly flipping back through the manual, trying to find the appropriate page and then reading through everything. Because I think, again, the game really isn't laid out too well, or the instructions really aren't laid out too well in the manual. But that could be just me. Maybe it's just the way I'm reading it, and, you know, my mind is a little bit different than everyone else's. The minis aren't bad. Some minis are better than others. Like, again, I wouldn't have chosen, I put the boss back in the box, but one of the boxes, Illidan or whatever, is the same color as these, so trying to find it out of all of these other blue ghosts are kind of difficult. Like, maybe I would have made the Class 1, Class 2, and the Class 3 ghosts a slightly different color, or maybe the boss a different color, as opposed to the blue, so that you can easily pick them out. And for whatever reason, the game came with streamer colors that I don't have. Like, there's this black here, there's like a light purple, a pink. I think that the Kickstarter campaign, one of the stretch goals was extra characters, and I think the tokens for those extra characters came in my game, but I didn't get the extra characters. Now, and that's probably, you know, okay. Like, I wasn't expecting the extra characters because I didn't support the game on Kickstarter, so I just got the standard 4 characters. But why include those other tokens if I don't have those extra characters? Unless they're used for something else. They might be used for a different scenario that I haven't gotten to yet. So I don't want to, like, say one thing and then be totally wrong about it, but there's some extra tokens in here that I haven't used yet. And then Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, very heavily weighted. Very heavy. But it's not painted. Like, the sailor outfit isn't painted or anything like that. So, like, the minis are okay, but I expected a little bit more for a $50 to $60 game. And that's where I also want to say something. Like, whenever I see a $50 or $60 game on the market, I expect a very complicated game. Especially with a rulebook like this. I mean, there's 21 pages, and in most cases, it's like, okay, when I see $50 to $60 game, it's usually a heavy Euro, requires 3 hours to play. That's not the case with this. Each scenario takes about 30 to 45 minutes, sometimes an hour. In my case, it took an hour because we didn't know what we were doing. But in most cases, it's 30 to 45 minutes or so per scenario. So the game doesn't take that long to play, okay? And the only time it would take long to play is if you're going through the campaign back to back and doing all 4 at the same time. But, I mean, you can play one scenario mission, write down what your XP was for each character, and then come back to it later and then do, like, say, scenario number 2 at a different date. Or you can do the one-offs scenarios, and you can do that too. So that's a possibility. But I guess what I was trying to get at, I wasn't expecting this to be a $50 or $60 game after I learned the rules and started playing it. Like, this is a much simpler game than what I would have expected for a $50 or $60 game. But at the same time, you're also paying for the name Ghostbusters. I mean, if you go to the store and you see the Lego stuff and see Lego Star Wars or Ninjago or whatever it is now, it's just it's like $50 or $60 for a TIE fighter, a little dinky TIE fighter, Lego Star Wars TIE fighter, $50 or $60. You're paying for a Lego name and you're paying for the Star Wars name. I think the same thing is happening here. You're paying for the minis and you're paying for the Ghostbusters franchise name, license, whatever you want to call it. So I think that's where the price comes into play. Knowing I probably still would pay the $50 I paid for this, because I really love the Ghostbusters. I mean, I really like him, but I even have the DVD cartoons somewhere in my closet. But I really like the Ghostbusters, so I would have paid it anyway to get it. I guess it all depends on how much you like the Ghostbusters. If you don't like the Ghostbusters at all, or if you have a mild interest in the Ghostbusters, then there are other cooperative games out on the market that would probably be a better value to you than this game here. But if you really like the Ghostbusters like me, you probably already have the game, so there's no point in me saying you should, buy it or not buy it. You probably have it, just like me. So, yeah, if this is a cooperative game, it's not bad. It does some things that I don't like, but at the same time, Vinny and I did enjoy ourselves. Despite the fact that we played wrong. So, yeah, I mean, it depends. I mean, how much do you really like the Ghostbusters? This is what it comes down to. How much do you really like the Ghostbusters? If you really like the Ghostbusters and you like cooperative games, then I'd say pick this up. But if you don't like the Ghostbusters, but you do like cooperative games, then check out other games like Pandemic or Flashpoint Fire Rescue. There are other cooperative games out on the market that probably have a little bit more oomph than this one does. Okay, so apologies, my camera cut out on me. It has a certain limit. It can only record in 10-minute spurts, and I was going over. So, just to quickly sum everything up, I do think that this game is okay. It does some things I don't like. I think it will appeal to people who really like the Ghostbusters and really like cooperative games. If you don't really care for the Ghostbusters, then I would say save your money on the name, because you're buying the name for the most part. Besides the minis, you're buying the name. I would say save your money and go get another cooperative game like Pandemic or Flashpoint Fire Rescue. But if you really like the Ghostbusters like I do, then I would say go check this one out. So with that being said, if you guys want to see my written review, you can at www.dadsgamingaddiction.com. If you haven't already, subscribed to my YouTube channel. That way you can keep up to date with any new content I happen to publish. This is Vince. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.